Morning, my dear students, and welcome back after a long gap. I know that we people have left the chapter enemy in between, but before I continue with the chapter, I hope that you all had given your exams very well and are going to score good marks. As such, also, I have seen that in English everyone had attempted beautifully all the questions, and I'm really very happy with it. Now, coming to the chapter The Enemy, I might take little time in giving a feedback of what we people have done in the previous classes because we need to have a revision before we continue with the new portion of this chapter. In this earlier, The Enemy, I have already told you that we are going to talk about the human virtues. We are going to talk about patriotism. All these virtues are basically a part and parcel of every human being, or you can say that it's considered that loving one's own country is the most beautiful aspect of a person's life. In this story, we are going to study something more than that. We are going to study that humanity is above all. To love human beings and to help them in varied circumstances is much more important than anything else. Now, here the story is about a Japanese doctor, Dr. Sadao Hockey, and his dilemma, his fight between patriotism and his own profession and the call of his duty. Dr. Sadao Hockey, in the beginning, we have seen about the house of Dr. Sadao Hockey, which is situated in Japan, and basically it is surrounded by the pine trees. And also we have seen that a little further to his house is the beach, and further from that an island could be seen, and he had often been taken with his father to that particular place, the island, which his father considered to be the stepping stone for Japan in future. Now, Dr. Sadao's father, we have seen that he was not like any other father who would play or joke or pass time with his son, but he was the one who was very concerned about his education, because of which we have seen that at somewhat in a very young age, he was just 22, he was sent to America so that he could learn the basics of surgery and he can become a great surgeon. And when he was 30, he came back to his country, and before his father passed away, he became not only a famous surgeon but also a scientist. In the very same paragraph, again I have said that there were two basic reasons why Dr. Sadao was not sent with the Japanese troop to the battlefield. The first reason was, as I said to you, he was a scientist. He was trying to improve, or you can say that he was trying to bring perfection in one of the medicine which could clear the wounds. And the second thing was that the Japanese general, he was basically sick and could need operation anytime, and he trusted nobody else but Dr. Sadao. After that, we came across a paragraph in which it has been shown that he was standing in his house veranda, and he was just introspecting the atmosphere or the weather outside, in which the combination of the warm waves of the warmth of the place and the cold waves has created a fisty and a foggy and a misty environment. And because of that reason, slowly everything was getting covered with or wrapped with this mist. And he was thinking of going inside to be with his wife and his children. At that time, his wife came out, as she was wearing a kimono, and her name is Hannah. And when he saw her, he started recalling how he met Hannah. And he also started thinking, if he would have not fallen in love with Hannah, whom he would have married then. It's a long story. That is, when they were in America, there was a professor and his wife who always liked to make the foreign students feel at ease by throwing parties for them. though the parties were not that very welcomed by those foreign students, but it was still, you can say that, a change of um, place for them. And though the food was not good, wife was very loud, they still accepted those parties. Sada was not going to go, but still he went, and there he happens to see Hannah, and he fell in love with her, but he decided to hell himself till he confirms about the purity of purity, in the sense that the purity of Japanese race of Hannah. And then he fell, and then he fell in love with her. It has also been said that they waited for the permission of Sadao's father, because if he don't permit, they could not have married. So after his permission, they got married in the Japanese traditional manner. And then he thinks that because they have followed everything properly in the Japanese style, and with father's permission they got married, he feels that their marriage still lasts with 2 children, and the love still persisting in the same way. At that very moment, when they both were immersed in their own thoughts, in the lovely atmosphere, suddenly they felt that a figure raised up from the sea, or as if though the ocean had thrown the figure out of itself. And that figure stood up, staggered a little, means dragged himself or herself a little, and then again fell on face over the sand. They thought maybe a fisherman, because little far from Sadao's house where the fisher people's one place, and because of that reason, means a lot of fishermen used to live over there. And he thought that maybe in this sea waves, one of the boat might have got hold of, and that's why one of the fishermen might have reached to the shore somehow. And he was really worried, because he knew that the water over there had steepy rocks, means the rocks were very pointed and could cut anything. So he was worried about what could be the condition of that man, and he ran to that side, followed by Hannah. When he reached over there, his doubts came true, because already one side of the sand, means one side of that man, the sand was already red in color, which shows that he was bleeding. And then he just said, he exclaimed, and he said that he is wounded. And then he ran to him. That man, he was lying motionless over there, and his face was buried in the sand. One cap was stuck to his head, and the garments were in the condition of rags, means torn and very old type. Then he and Hannah stood by the side of his man, and then they turned the man's head, and they were totally shocked, because it was a white man, an American. Definitely it was a thing to think about, because already in the previous all videos I have told you that war was going on between America and Japan, and they were supposed to be two hostile countries. And then definitely it was a white man right there lying down with a wet cap which has fell apart, and totally unconscious. It looked like as if though he had passed through a lot of torturous time, and he was totally unconscious. Now suddenly then Sadao remembered the wound, and his professional expert fingers started searching for the wound, and it touched one place somewhere at the lower right back. And because his fingers touched the wound, fresh blood started coming out. It looked like a gunshot, and the skin round there had turned black, and it looked like as if the wound has not been looked after from few days. And then Hannah was worried that he was bleeding. At that particular moment, at that hour of the evening, there was no one around. Beach, those people come to the beach, for them it was already evening falling on, and for the fishermen it was day off. So only the husband and wife, means Dr. Sadao and Hannah, they were all alone. And then they started thinking what to do with him. Meanwhile, Dr. Sadao, he took the moss which was lying down at the side of the beach, and he made a patch of it and he applied it on the wound so that the bleeding will stop temporarily. While he did this, the man groaned, but he was still unconscious. And then Dr. Sadao, he thought that the best thing is to push him back into the water. And Hannah also agreed to it. The problem was that if they shelter him also, means if they gave him shelter in their house, it will be considered traitorship against the country, and they will be the one who will suffer. So they wanted to find out who he is. So he took his cap, which was lying apart from him, aside, and on it was written American Navy. Means he was a sailor from the American warship, a prisoner of war, a POW. And because of that only he was wounded, means he was shot from the back. And then Hannah thought that better thing is that to put him back into the sea. But the fact was that who will push him into the sea? Sadao will be able to, but alone he can't. And Hannah, she's not able enough to do. Means from inside she's not ready to do. And Sadao, he was also a little hesitant. He spoke to Hannah and he said that if he had been in a proper condition, I would have handed him over to the police, or anything else. But because he was not a whole here means he was not in a proper shape, in a proper health. He was wounded. A wound was there which was not looked after from days. So it was not proper for him. Hannah understood he can't push him into the water. So she said that let's take him home. But then Dr. Sada was worried about the servants. The servants, what to tell them? Then Hannah said that definitely we will be telling them that we have brought him over here, but he is our enemy. We will get him all right and hand him over to the police. Sadao said that definitely I'm going to do that. And then both husband and wife, they lifted the man, and because of maybe months in the jail, torture, no food or whatever be, he was just like skeleton and feather, means no weight at all. They lifted him up, catching hold of his arms and legs, and passed through the passage and entered into a spare bedroom. Actually it was a bedroom of his father, and from after his death it has not been used up. And they took him inside and they laid him on the deep matted floor. And then she went to the cupboard, took out one quilt and covered him with a lot of hesitance because he was very dirty. So doctor said that he needs to be cleaned up. When he said this, she said that I don't want you to touch him. Means Hannah said this to Dr. Sadao, and I'll call Yumi to do the same. Now Yumi, who is this Yumi? Yumi is the governess of their children, who looks after their children, like a nanny, no? And she said that I'll call her. And then Dr. Sadao said that okay, I'll go and tell the servants. Before going, he just bent down because the face of the man seemed very pale. He bent down and he checked his pulses, and then he thought, even if he survives from an operation which he planned to do to save this man, whether he will still be alive. So Hannah said that it is better that he die. But Hannah knew very well that he was a brilliant doctor, an expert in his work. So she knew it very well, that him dying during the operation, next to impossible. And then it came to the fact that he has to be cleaned up first. He moved out of the room. Hannah got frightened, and she didn't want to be there with him, because for her this man seems to be a troublemaker only. And then she went and called Yumi. Children heard her voice, and she had to go and spend some time with them. And then she said to Yumi, come with me. Yumi said that the baby is about to sleep, let me put him to bed. And then after that she laid the mattress, and then she put the baby down, and then she followed Hannah out of the bedroom. Meanwhile, these servants were very frightened because Dr. Sadao had told them about what all the things are all about. And then the old gardener, who was the oldest servant of that house, he said that he deliberately said it to Hannah that the master must not have done this because the sea tried to kill him, the bullet tried to kill him. So the master must not try to save him, otherwise the wrath will fall on him. And then Hannah very courteously she said that okay, I will let him know. And then she also started thinking whether saving an enemy is a wrong thing. Then she went ahead, opened the partition. Yumi followed her with a bucket of hot water, and seeing the white man, she just, it was like a kind of a wincing of the mouth she did, and she didn't like the idea of cleaning that man, and she said that I'm a poor servant and I cannot go for all those things. I have never cleaned a white man and I never will do. And then Hannah, she was angry and she said that you must do what your master commands. Then she said that no, but the expression on Yumi's face gave a fright to Hannah, like what if Yumi goes and tell outside what actually is not the story all about. So she said that okay, you go and do your work. And she stayed back. Out of anger, she stayed back over there, and without unknowingly, she herself took the towel, dipped in the hot water, and started cleaning the man, and talking to herself that how can you be frightened of a half dead man or a unconscious man, and etc etc. And then in this way she cleaned the man and she looked at him. Then she could not turn him, or you can say that she did not want to take the risk of turning him, and she just covered his body with the quilt in case he should not catch cold. And then she very slowly, now meanwhile by this time her anger has already flared out, and her old terror started coming back to her, and she softly called out Sadao. And at that instant Sadao opened the door and he entered. She saw that he was in the surgeon coat with his surgical kit, and she asked, you have decided to operate? And he said yes. And he turned back to her. He took a sterilized towel, spread it over a tokonoma alcove, means a kind of a small platform where the show pieces and all those kind of things are arranged, and he started spreading out his things, and then he asked her to fetch the towels. Now further I'll be taking in the next class that we people have done the feedback in this video. Our next video will be continuing with the chapter Enemy. In that I will not take any feedback, but I'll continue with the chapter. Till then, goodbye and stay safe.